If you are a gardener, chances are you've grown tomatoes. There are few plants more adored and widely grown across the gardener landscape.
Life is a tomato right off the vine.
From carefully watered patio pots to the sprawling volunteer emerging from the compost pile to the ruby-studded plants staked out in the back 40. But I would guess that while the percentage of gardeners who have grown a tomato is close to 100%, the percentage of people who have saved tomato seeds is much smaller. Let's get to changing that.
Those ideas where you're just like, yes!
Saving your own tomato seeds is a great way to help the novice seed saver cut their teeth and is as rewarding as it is easy. Here's that process in 12 self-sufficient steps. Number 1, grow a tomato plant, optional. Seeds must be harvested from mature fruits, but in the case of plants that we eat in their infancy, such as eggplants, cucumbers, and zucchinis, you have to grow your own to reap seeds from the rather inedible final form of the plant in question. Well, when it comes to tomatoes, the desirable fruit is the mature ripe fruit, green tomatoes being a notable exception, of course. Viable seed may be harvested from any ripe, final colored fruit. If you're growing your own and want to save pure seeds, you'll have to make sure to only grow one variety of tomato. Otherwise, if you have the space, be sure to grow different varieties at least 35 feet apart. Take note, if you're growing currant tomatoes, they need to be at least 150 feet from any other tomato. Step number 2, get several ripe tomatoes. However you come by them, in order to have ripe tomato seeds, you need ripe tomatoes. If you're growing your own, pick the best looking fruit from the best looking plants. Ideally, you want at least 6 different tomatoes from at least 6 different plants for a baseline of good genetic diversity. If you're trying to save seeds from a supermarket tomato, I would caution against it. Many are hybrids that will give you unknown results, and some of the hybrids will have been tampered with genetically. Some tomato seeds occasionally sprout within the fruit, which is something that natural tomatoes shouldn't do. There are even GMO tomatoes being sold in stores now. You're much better off getting fruit from a gardener or growing your own. If you're saving seeds from an heirloom tomato either given to you by a friend or bought at the farmer's market, it's also possible that those could be hybridized too, but they will likely just have hybridized naturally. There will still be genetic wildcards, but they might just also make an amazing tomato. Number 3, slice in half and squeeze. Tomatoes have several parts beneath their thin skins: the meaty, delicious flesh and the seed cavities full of translucent gel-like sacs and seeds. The easiest way to access the seeds is to simply cut the tomato in half across the middle with the blossom end on the bottom and the stem end on the top. The method will expose the majority of the seed cavities. Then squeeze the tomato seeds over a jar. The seeds will flood into the jar, leaving the meaty flesh behind. Now, the nice thing about saving tomato seeds is that the flesh is still, obviously, completely edible. It might not look pretty, but you can easily throw the now seedless tomatoes into sauce or into a slightly ugly and totally tasty salad. Repeat the process with the rest of your sliced tomatoes. Number 4, add a bit of water, stir, and cover. You now have a jar full of tomato seeds, but here's a problem. As is, they're all still trapped within a jelly-like sac full of germination inhibitor. This material is important as it keeps the seeds from sprouting when they're still within the watery innards of the tomato. To get these seeds dry and shelf-stable, we need to free them from their translucent prisons. There is a natural method for this, thankfully, and one that tomatoes use themselves in the wild. When a tomato fruit drops to the ground, it rots. That bacterial activity destroys the sprout inhibitor and allows the seeds to do their thing in the soil. We're going to do a controlled version of that as we ferment the pulp to set the seeds free. Add about a 1/4 cup of water to your jar and stir. Then cover the jar with 2 layers of paper towel secured with a rubber band. This keeps out fruit flies, who absolutely adore fermenting tomato seeds. And put it somewhere you're not going to forget about it. The kitchen counter works. If you're growing and processing the seeds of more than one variety of tomato, be sure to label each jar with the variety name. Tomato seeds look pretty much the same once they're out of the fruit. Number 5, let the seeds sit and ferment. I should warn you, fermenting tomato seeds do not smell good. In fact, they smell downright repulsive. But even though your nose might be offended over the next few days, count it a stinky, smelly success. You'll know your tomato seeds have fermented long enough when white, fuzzy mold appears in the top of the jar. This usually takes about 3 days in the warm humidity of summer when tomatoes are ripe, though it might take a bit longer if you're in an overly air-conditioned house. It's important to stop fermentation as soon as the mold appears. Let the jar sit too long and the seeds, now free of their inhibitions, may very well start sprouting. Number 6, add lots more water and stir. You now have a rotten smelling jar full of mold, fermented tomato pulp, and seeds. We're going to want to add a bit more water and stir that mushy mess. The good seeds will sink to the bottom and the rest of the nastiness will float to the top. Number 7, carefully pour off scum, mold, and pulp. With a careful hand, slowly pour off all the offending liquid off the top of your jar. If you pour too quickly, those precious seeds in the bottom are going to escape, so take your time. If a lot of tomato pulp was left behind, you might have to add more water and rinse again. The end goal is a soggy cluster of clean seeds at the bottom of your jar. Number 8, Lay tomato seeds to dry on a paper towel. Now the seeds need to be dried before they sprout. Spread the seeds on a paper towel that is labeled with their variety name. I typically reuse the paper towel that served as the fruit fly barrier and let them dry. Number 9, allow to dry completely. There is no rush when it comes to drying your fuzzy little tomato seeds. It's better to err on the side of caution and let them dry for at least a week or 2 before you put them into storage. As someone who has experienced it, I can absolutely confirm that finding your store seeds weren't dried long enough and ended up molding in storage is not an enjoyable experience. Number 10, crumble apart and place in a labeled plastic bag. The dried tomato seeds should resemble clumps of granola once dried. Simply crumble and place them in an envelope or plastic bag for storage. Be sure, as always, to clearly label the envelope with the variety name and the date they were grown. Number 11, share any extras. If you listen to my advice and save seed from at least 6 fruits from at least 6 different plants or more, then you're probably going to end up with more tomato seeds than you can use in the next gardening season. This is my favorite sort of problem. Whenever I find myself with a surplus of seeds, which is a near constant state as plants are generous, I set about finding someone else who might want them. Sharing seeds, and sharing seeds freely, is one of the quiet joys of being a self-sufficient gardener. Whether you pass your seeds along in a seed swap, donate to your local seed library, or trade with a neighbor, the secret fun of growing too many seeds is making friends. Number 12, grow again next year. Of course, the whole point of saving tomato seeds is to grow them again next year. Though tomato seeds have a shelf life of several years, they'll do you no good in a seed sitting in an envelope. When you put seeds to soil the following spring, you'll have the deep satisfaction of knowing that they are your tomatoes. And that's a feeling anyone can relish when they know how to save their own tomato seeds.
Let's party.